today we are speaking to Professor Brigitte Holzinger, who is the psychologist and director of the Institute for Consciousness and Dream Research in Vienna, Austria. Today we are talking with Professor Holzinger about lucid dreaming, because Professor Holzinger is an expert in lucid dreaming as a therapeutic technique. Dear Professor Holzinger, could you please tell us more about this fascinating technique, which you are one of the biggest experts in the field?
Thank you, Ludmila. Hello. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about lucid dreaming at ESRS. I'm very happy that lucid dreaming becomes a topic amongst sleep researchers as well. And it deserves it because, of course, lucid dreaming happens when we sleep. And it is a conscious phenomenon during sleep. And we need much more research about it. And I think we have only started to understand lucid dreaming a little bit. Let's maybe start with what is lucid dreaming at all? And over the years, and I have started, as we talked about earlier, my first research project in 1988, long time ago, with the help of Stephen LaBerge and Lynn Levitan at his and William Dement's sleep lab at Stanford University. And he is the pioneer of the basic research for basic physiological research for lucid dreaming. And Stephen LaBerge has given us the most important research and research results up until now, really, when it comes to physiological correlates of lucid dreaming. That, of course, was also my topic for my PhD thesis, which I was very lucky to be able to do the research with Stephen LaBerge and Lynn Levitan at the sleep lab of William Dement at the Stanford University. And what was most impressive then for me, besides the findings, was that in 1998, because of Stephen LaBerge's technique, who has done this before in a sleep lab, I, as the researcher in the pilot room at night, was able to communicate with a sleeping dreamer. And that has not been understood up until now, that somebody else claims that, oh my God, have we managed to do this? But that's the technique of Stephen LaBerge, and we have done this 30, 40 years ago already at Stanford, and there's lots of research you can look up describing that. My paper was published way later because that happens with pioneer work. It was quite difficult at the beginning, but it was published in Dreaming in 2006, almost 20 years after the project. Well, because it had to undergo the review process, and at that time, sleep researchers, the people who reviewed it, didn't believe much in lucid dreaming. And then I remember that colleagues from the Dream Lab in Zurich, Inge Strauch, who was a very esteemed researcher and very important in the field of sleep research.
I'm sorry, and how could you prove that the contract was achieved? What was?
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I just finished the sentence. That, for instance, Inge Strauch said, "Well, how do you just dream that you know that you're dreaming?" Of course, you know, epistemologically, that is a question that needs to be answered. So it's not easy to answer, really, but. You could probably, exactly because of that activity that you just wanted to know about, claim that, of course, you have entered in a dream state real secondary consciousness qualities, or you could say cognitive or volitional qualities, definitely. Because the research design was such, and that is Stephen LaBerge's design, and he taught me how to apply it, you train somebody who participates voluntarily, preferably somebody who is fond of dreams and is able to remember dreams well, and kept the dream diary before, ask themselves, am I dreaming whenever they see a light in waking state? I don't know, the sun, the light on the street, the light in the room, whatever. Yeah? So you kind of condition yourself whenever you perceive light, to question yourself, am I dreaming? Or is this a dream? You have to choose which question you want, because of course in the dream state, at first at least, your cognitive abilities are not very famous. When you then in the sleep lab have the subjects wear a sleep mask, which was developed by Stephen LaBerge, that measures when REM sleep started via infrared sensors, and then after a certain time that you can determine, applies light flashes to the dreamer, who is still sleeping. And that needs to be very well researched and calibrated, because of course they can't be too bright, they can be not bright enough, whatever. So too bright would be that then the dreamer would wake up, and we don't want to wake the people up, we want them to keep dreaming, also sleeping at least. And we looked at only REM sleep at that time, because then the eyes could move, because that was then the response to when they saw the light. When because they saw the light, they asked that questions, am I dreaming? And they were able to answer that question with a yes, and knew that they had agreed to then give a signal with the eyes, left, right, to let us, in that case me, the researcher in the pilot room, know that they have now started to have a lucid episode in the REM sleep. So the communication was light and signal. And they knew, and we had agreed upon for them that they would signal each minute with the eyes, with the volitional eye movements, that they're still lucid. So they were able to keep that intention and act accordingly, because they knew if they didn't do that, they would be woken up, so that we don't lose the content of that lucid dream. And it was very funny, because the very trained lucid dreamers, then they did not only signal every 60 seconds with 1 minute, which was agreed upon, but every 50 seconds, so that they wouldn't miss it, the 60 seconds. And that's very, very, very so intriguing. It's all so fascinating still. And we have just started to understand that state. Of course, you know, by saying that, that means that in a lucid dream, you have at least what you can call a time feeling. You can estimate 50 to 60 seconds, which you cannot when you have no lucidity in a dream, as you often experience time. There could be decades that you kind of go through in one dream, at least as far as the impression is. And that all these observations and talking about this all the time, of course, is so fascinating and interesting and inspiring. And the recent work that we have done with one of my colleagues here in Vienna, published in Frontiers last year, Frontiers of Psychic Neuroscience, in an issue edited by Sergio Arturo from Brazil, that and others, that it is worth thinking about the lucid dreaming state as a different state of consciousness than dreams under the condition of dreaming and sleeping, and that it might be sort of a neural net connection that needs to be activated in order to distinguish what is a lucid dream from a non-lucid dream. Why do I say this? Because you can be in a regular dream, you can recognize you're dreaming, okay, nothing changes. Or you can do something or decide something and nothing changes. But if you decide and recognize what state you're in, if you have two features, it's very likely that other features change, like the perception. The dream scenario becomes more vivid, say. Or that you know, or I have the impression that you know why you're dreaming this dream, if you ask yourself that question. Or that you will remember, you know that you will remember the dream, and you remember what you wanted to do in the dream if you had any intentions. So those are all secondary consciousness features, and that you usually have in usual wakefulness, you have that abilities, but usually in sleep and dreams you don't. And it might be sort of the secondary consciousness that kind of emerges as a phenomenon of emergence, as a lucid dream. That's all. I'm saying it's so fascinating. And this goes back, of course, to Paul Tholey, who, as I mentioned before, as my other teacher in Germany, Gestalt theoretic psychology, the first psychology of perception. And it is so famous that everybody has forgotten that Gestalt psychology existed, because it has transferred into our daily life. Because Gestalt psychology is that branch of research where they, of course, claimed that our perception is based on the perception of entities, of perception entities, and called Gestalten, and that they can be visually conveyed by the so-called Vexierbilder, the pictures where you change background and foreground. And depending on if you focus on background or foreground, you see the two faces or the vase, so to say. So that those are sort of basic rules of perception. And from that, the Gestalt theorists or the Gestalt psychologists then questioned how real is reality, so to say, or what realities can we describe. And Paul Tholey was one of those Gestalt theorists in the 70s and 60s and 80s of the last century and beginning 90s. And he happened to have a dream in which he questioned the reality in which he was in, and that was his first lucid dream. He called it Klartraum, because, or the dream of clarity, you could say. I like that word very much still. And he has investigated sort of epistemological and phenomenological aspects of Klartraum, or the dreams of clarity, and he comes up with a definition of 7 features that need to be fulfilled in order to speak of a so-called Klartraum or lucid dream. And those 7 features, of course, have inspired me, as I consider myself a pupil, so to say, of Paul Tholey as well, to kind of see if we can find specific brain areas that would correspond to the specific, to those 7 features. And that is what we did in the, it's an attempt to talk about this in the Frontiers article last year, 2020.
How can you apply this approach for treatment of sleep disorders? How do we do this?
Lucid dreaming could be a tool, a potent tool for psychotherapy, and I thought, how could I show this best? And of course, the topic of nightmares emerged. 2002, we got a research project granted, in which we wanted to look at lucid dreaming as a treatment for nightmares finally, because we have started applying, I think, in 1999 or something like that. I thought that if we could show that the frequency of nightmares could be reduced, that would give us a number that we can talk about. Efficiency of lucid dreaming for psychotherapy, sleep research, sleep medicine. And I had known, or that I had been told before by many people, that why are researchers not looking at lucid dreaming as a tool for nightmares? Like, as I mentioned earlier, I'd lived by international conferences, really, as a sleep and dream researcher. And amongst one of several of these consciousness conferences, or the dream research and consciousness conferences, I'm sorry, Vietnam veterans attended. And they used lucid. They told me that they use lucid dreaming for the nightmares, for the PTSD nightmares. And they said, why is nobody talking about this? And that was very impressive to me. And that's why, I started that project. So I had known and I had been told how effective that is already. So it's not like I didn't know about that. I just wanted to prove it and put it in numbers. But still, doing that project, we learned so much more about the process, about teaching lucid dreaming, about what is effective, might be effective, and how to change. How do you tell people about dreams, and how do we give them a so-called guidance on how to change a dream? Because of course this would be about changing the dream, probably the nightmare somehow, if you become aware of your dream state and free yourself of that fear, because that's what people experience, and they have horror experiences over and over and over again. And they're so relieved and and thankful when you tell them that it was already very effective to tell them, actually, you know, there is something you can help yourself with when it actually happens again at night when you sleep, the horror. Yeah, you can rescue yourself. That already made them sleep better, a little bit, at least. Yeah. So that they didn't have to have lucid dreams in order to have the lucid dreaming program, teaching program, be effective already, because that already was a relief, for instance.
Do you think that any person can learn lucid dreaming? Like, you can teach anyone, or other people who are resistant to this technique?
I'm not sure, actually. But Stephen LaBerge claimed that he has proven that everybody can. I tend to believe that in theory everybody can learn how to have a lucid dream. I think younger people, it's easier for younger people. Maybe because their schedules are a little bit more flexible. They have more time to sleep. People forget that you need to sleep enough it's helpful to sleep enough if you want to have lucid dreams. Younger people are also not so much trenched in a daily life. So they have more, so to say, I'm not sure how else I can call it, but psychological energy that they can use up for the intention of lucid dreaming, because to me it seems that you need to spend time doing that, and you need to spend some concentration on you want to have those lucid dreams. Also, I think for older people it can be more difficult to learn it if they didn't have it. But I just talked this morning to a colleague and friend of mine here in Vienna who is into consciousness research, and he claims that he has lucid dreams every day, and he is already 70 years old almost, and he still does. So I don't know. But do I recommend lucid dreaming for everybody? No, I don't. That is very important to me. Or I should say, potentially yes, but if I say you have a client, if you know that you have troubles with reality or the recognition of reality, please don't do this by yourself.
So you need a guide, like
Absolutely.
a instructor.
Absolutely. Psychotherapist, psychologist, so preferably somebody who's trained in dream work or lucid dreaming work, and don't Don't go to an esoteric teacher who maybe makes you enter whatever states, and they may be actually interesting but quite destructive to your usual daily life. Also, I have heard of people, not my patients luckily, but I've heard of people who kind of lost themselves, so to say, in the world of whatever lucid dreaming they wanted to, or the set that they experienced. And what's going on in these forums at the internet, I'm not very fond of it all, because there is kind of a competition of whoever had the fastest, the better, best, and the most impressive lucid dream, and that's I don't think that's very healthy.
Yes, this can be dangerous.
I think so. I think so. We don't know enough about it, and definitely recommend for a respectful approach. Also, if you have no problems with realities, we are kind of at the white spots of the inner landscape. We don't know. And most of the psychotherapeutic methods regard dreams as Freud did, the via regia to the unconscious, also, and with explosive potential to good and bad. And that's how I see it, and including lucid dreaming.
Can the person become dependent on this lucid dreaming? Like when he or she likes it so much, he doesn't want to be in the reality.
Yeah, that is remembering me of a film in, I think, in the 90s by Wim Wenders, Until the End of the World, I think. Bis ans Ende der Welt in German. It's not about lucid dreaming, it's about dreaming, but the plot is such that researchers had developed the possibility to project your dream into a TV screen. People would walk around with their TV screens all the time, and they don't do anything else anymore, but just look into the TV screens, which are picturing the dreams. So they become addicted to their own dreams. Do they become dependent? I think it's always good to not lose perspective of real life and everyday life, and not forget that the dream world and the lucid dreams as well for us, and not a surrogate, the more important reality, because of course lucid dreamers, like Buddhistic thoughts sometimes, and they're in the Buddhistic world. They say that, I mean, I'm not a Buddhist and I don't know, but I've heard that they say that the dream world is more real than the real world. And of course, life after death, or the reality after nirvana is the most real. Also, you know, it has to be all done in good relations and in good spirits. And you need to think about what you think, and what your belief systems are. I think this is important to think about that before you start that. And that's why I say it's best to have guidance.
And coming back to medical issues, besides nightmares, in which field of sleep medicine or any other field of medicine the lucid dreaming can be effective and helpful?
Let's stick with the nightmare for a moment, and let's consider that the nightmare can be an expression or a diagnostic topic for narcolepsy, a sleep onset horror in narcoleptics. We have talked about the possibility of lucid dreaming there for a very long time with our colleagues from Italy. And we are very happy that they have entered the dream field. I can mention Luigi De Gennaro, for instance, and I'm very fond of, remember very fondly the talks we had at an ESRS conference, I don't know, 2001 or 6, or a long time ago, maybe 1990 something. Anyhow, where we thought about, could lucid dreaming help the narcoleptic patient with the horrors that they enter, not all of them, but many, with sleep onset REM. And as a matter of fact, it happened so that one of the participants of the first research projects that we did with the nightmares and lucid dreaming was a narcoleptic patient. He was diagnosed with the genetic diagnosis with narcolepsy, and he said that he wasn't able to change. So he was able to recognize that this was a dream when he experienced those horror visions upon falling asleep. He wasn't able to change them, but to know that this is a dream or the dream-like hallucination relieved him to some extent. It took away the weight of that horror, so to say. So that is something I think we should investigate more. And regarding sleep research, a new field that has popped up, not maybe for treatment so much, but for understanding what is going on, is sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is not being researched much, not enough at all. But younger people seem to report this more than before. Maybe this is also an answer to your question earlier, that they experience sleep paralysis. And we don't know, do they come from them training to have lucid dreams, or is it a phenomenon of the people of this generation now? But anecdotally, definitely, we have more reports about sleep paralysis. And we don't know what that really means. We consider sleep paralysis harmless, but we're not sure. It might be a dissociative state, and it might have to do with trauma, maybe. We don't know. We have to look into that more. And it is also very interesting and very holds a lot of research potential for understanding how sleep comes about overall. And the brain areas, of course. Talking about psychology and psychodynamics, the clients I had, and that's maybe a very impressive example. I remember one client very vividly, and this is 20 years ago or more. And she came and was quite modest, sort of introverted young woman, and working at the bookkeeping agency, and very reliable and very sweet, but kind of shy. And she was very much interested in lucid dreaming. And so I thought, well, maybe she could attend these lucid dreaming workshops that I give. I give lucid dreaming workshops, so once a year at least, maybe twice a year. So she attended and developed amazing lucid dreams at once. Yeah, from one, we talked about the lucid dream the first day, the next day she reported amazing lucid dreams that she had experienced during the first night. And the people come up with all sorts of ideas, for instance, going through walls and things like that. They're all inspired by, I don't know, all these movies that have been around where you have superpowers and do super things, and so you can super walk through a wall or something like that. And I was like, when people develop that, I'm like, please slow down a little bit, not necessary to leave your body and go, I don't know, into the orbit or on the Mars or whatnot. She liked it a lot, and she was very interested, and I lost touch with her. Eventually after that workshop, because she had what she wanted, obviously, and she didn't want to undergo therapy, so it wasn't necessary for her. Anyhow, of course, I was interested, say a year later approximately, what has happened to her, because of course I want to know what the lucid dreamer, what becomes of the lucid dreamers I train. And so she comes and into my practice, and she is dressed a little bit more colorful, and her hairstyle is a little bit more fashionable, and so we talk about what's happening in her life, and she says, "Oh, I'm fine, everything's good. I'm still working at the tax accountant bookkeeping company, and yeah." I'm kind of asked, "Well, do you still have lucid dreams?" And also because I was wondering how she developed regarding that as well. And she said, "No, haven't had a lucid dream in a long time." So, oh, that's interesting. But you had been very good at lucid dreaming at once at the beginning. And she said, yes, I enjoyed it tremendously. I like it very much. But to me, what happened was most important, which is realizing that I could, once I was aware in my dream, change my dream, take responsibility of what emerges or that goes on in that dream plot. I realized that I could also change my life and take responsibility for what's going on. And I had been in not such a good relationship, and I have ended that relationship. And I'm now relieved and very happy. And so I don't have to have lucid dreams anymore because I got out of it what I needed.
That's an important effect.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not, of course, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying everybody should get a divorce or when you lose the dream. Of course not. Yeah. Of course not at all. Yeah. But for her, it seemed to be the right decision. It'd be so freeing and liberating that you are not, you can take, I don't like that word, but you could, in English, it's the better word. You can take, we would charge. You can take charge. First of all, you have a choice and you can take charge.